Hey guys, my name is Emily, if you haven't seen my face before, and today I'm going to be doing a reading vlog for Confess by Colleen Hoover. If you haven't seen any of my reading vlogs before, I am doing a full read through of Colleen Hoover's books, and I will leave all of my reading vlogs I've done so far for her in the cards above if you want to check that out. So this book is about a girl named Auburn who is looking for a job one day, and she stumbles into an art studio and meets Owen and is instantly attracted to him, and they start this thing, but he has a secret that he needs to tell her, and everything would supposedly just be fixed if he could just confess this secret to Auburn. But he's not doing that. So that's kind of the general gist of what this book is about. I am going to see you guys back at the end once I finish the book to give you guys my final thoughts. This video will have spoilers for Confess if you haven't already read it, but if you aren't planning on reading it and you just like to hear some thoughts, then by all means, keep on watching.
Hey guys, I am about to start Confess by Colleen Hoover. I don't know anything about this book, as always. I'm not sure if it's in a series or not, and I have flipped through it, and I do see that there's a couple of pictures in this book, which is interesting. It's not something I don't think I've ever seen in a Colleen Hoover book, so I'm excited to get started, and I will see you guys once I have read a little bit more. Alright, so I just finished chapter 2, so I think I have a general gist now of who the characters might be and what's going on. So we have Auburn, who I think is going to be our main character, and we started with her point of view, and there was this, I think, flashback kind of scene where she was in the hospital with her boyfriend Adam, who was pretty sick and seemed like he wasn't going to make it. So they were both in high school, and it seemed like they both knew that this was coming. It wasn't like a sudden event. And once I read that, I thought that the rest of this book was going to be a bigger flashback of them meeting and falling in love with each other, and then the build up of, well, Adam is sick and Adam's going to die, and that's what I thought this book was going to do, but I don't think that's actually what's going to happen anymore. Then we get a time skip, and we have Auburn, who's a little bit older. I think Adam must have died because she's not with him, and she has moved back to Texas, I think it is, and she's looking for ways to make more money because she is pretty down bad financially, and she ends up coming across this building that has a bunch of paper strips of confessions, I guess, written on them, and they're pressed up against the window, and this place is hiring. So she sees that, and it takes her interest right away, and she's like, ooh, maybe this is my opportunity to get some more money. So this guy ends up coming out and pulling her into the building. His name is Owen, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be the love interest. So Owen is an artist, and get this, I think this is really interesting. He has this whole artist gallery thing going on that revolves around him getting anonymous confessions from people. So people leave their confessions and they drop them off, and he takes those and he turns them into paintings in the way that he interprets the confession and what he thinks it means and how he wants to portray it, and then he makes a painting of that confession, basically, and then puts them in his art gallery, which I think is pretty cool. I haven't really read a lot of books about artists, so I'm immediately already a little bit intrigued. Like, how is this going to go? Confessions, like, there seems like there's going to be some drama, which I'm totally here for. So he tells Auburn that he wants her help to basically run part of this art gallery where she'll sell paintings to fill in for his ex-girlfriend, who was supposed to do that part, but now she's his ex-girlfriend. So Auburn agrees to take over so she can make some money and help Owen sell some of his paintings. So we got Auburn's perspective, and then in chapter 2 we got Owen's perspective, and it turns out that he knows her from somewhere. We don't know how he knows her yet, but he already knows who she is, basically. And I have a feeling it's to do with something related to Adam, her old boyfriend, and that something happened with Adam, and that's how he knows who she is. But that's just my prediction for now. We'll see if that ends up happening or not. So in common Colleen Hoover fashion, I'm already pretty sucked in. This happens with most of her books. As soon as I start reading them, the characters just draw me in right away, and I'm really fascinated to see what's going to go on, how he knows her, how this whole confessions thing is going to turn out, what really happened with Adam. We're going to see as we read on. So I'm going to read a little bit more for today, and then I will see you guys shortly. I finished chapter 7, which brings me to page 99, and I think I'm going to stop here for today. I read a little bit of a chunk there, so I'm happy with it, and stuff is starting to go on, so I want to catch you guys up on what's happening. So Owen took Auburn to this little bar that his friend Harrison works at, and they had this cute little moment where they were flirting with each other. They had this really good back and forth. They did some dancing, and it seems like they have this really instant chemistry. And I'm definitely not a big fan of insta-love. I don't like that trope, and I think it's kind of annoying, to be honest. But I don't think we're on that level yet where they're instantly in love with each other. I think it's more so that they're instantly finding just chemistry and they're interested in each other. They're not in love, but they're interested, and I'm okay with that as long as it doesn't go too quickly. After that whole cute bar thing, he takes her back to his place where he has a bunch of the confessions that he's used and some that he hasn't used. And she reads some of them. There's a bunch of confessions that are really sweet and lighthearted. There's also some that are really deep and really sad to read. And honestly, I'm really liking that concept. I think it's very interesting. So after Auburn reads a couple, she's like, okay, I have an idea. How about we write our own confessions? And so they write their own little thing on some pieces of paper, and then they don't share them with each other. And then Owen ends up walking Auburn back home, and he comes in and they have their continued cute moments where they're bantering a little bit back and forth. And Auburn has a painting in her apartment that is from Adam, and I find it interesting that this is like the last thing that she has left of him, basically. And it's a painting, so seemingly Adam was also an artist, and now she conveniently finds Owen, who is also an artist as well. So I think this definitely has some type of meaning, like maybe he went to art class or something with Adam. I don't really know yet, but that's definitely going to mean something, because it can't just be a coincidence that they're both artists, right? Then he makes plans with her to see her again, but he doesn't end up showing up because he gets arrested for having drugs. So there's kind of a lot going on. He gets arrested, and apparently his dad is a lawyer or something, and his dad is like, I'm going to get you out on bail and all this, we're going to get you out. But they're also not on very good terms, Owen and his dad. And Owen also has a brother who I guess is dead. So a lot of stuff is getting revealed pretty early on in this book. So we're getting more info on what the situation is. So maybe Owen and his dad's relationship is messed up because something that happened to the brother, and maybe Owen's dad blames him. I don't really know yet, but that's what's going on with Owen. And obviously, since he didn't show up to their meeting time, Auburn is really upset by this, and she ends up going to Owen's place and leaving a confession telling him that she's basically really angry with him and she really liked him and she's upset that he stood her up, essentially. So they clearly are not on good terms right now, but they're going to make up, obviously, by the end of the book, I'm going to assume. So things are going pretty quickly, which I like. It's interesting and it's keeping me engaged. So I'm liking this book so far, and I will pick this back up in a few days, and I will see you guys once I've read some more chapters. All right, guys, I just finished chapter 10. I'm about halfway through Confess, and things are starting to pick up a little bit. Auburn ended up at the bar that Harrison worked at, the same one that Owen took her to, and she was drinking and she was upset because she got stood up on her birthday by Lydia. So Owen ends up coming to get her, and he ends up telling her that the reason why he didn't show up when he was supposed to show up to her is because he is moving on Monday, and he didn't want to start something with her because he liked her, even though he's moving because of that, which obviously we know isn't true. He is either going to go to prison or rehab because of the whole drug thing, which I'm still a little bit confused about, like if that means he's an addict or if he was covering for someone or what that was. Maybe I missed it, I don't know, but I'm sure we'll figure that out soon. So either way, he's lying to her, and he thinks it's easier to tell her that than to tell her the truth. Even though she was really mad at him and whatnot, she agrees to spend the weekend with him before he moves away. So he ends up taking her to a grocery store to get some food and stuff for their weekend, and then he tells her she can pick a birthday gift from a random aisle and a random shelf, which is something he did with his brother and his dad when they were kids, which is actually a really cute idea, and I thought that was kind of clever. But anyways, she does this, and she ends up picking out a tent, and she said something that was like, oh, I want this one because his favorite color is blue, or something. And Owen interpreted that as, oh, there's another guy in her life, and another guy whose favorite color is blue, thinking it was another man. And I was thinking it was probably Adam, like maybe she's still thinking about Adam, her boyfriend from whenever she was a teenager, the one that was sick. Owen brings the tent and stuff back to her place, I think. They set up the tent, and then there's a knock on the door, and there's a child who comes into the house who calls Auburn mommy. Owen hears this, and he's like, oh, she has a child? I know there's talk of Lydia, that she stood her up and that kind of thing, but I didn't really make the connection of this was Adam's mom. But I'm pretty sure it is. I think it's Adam's mom. So that must mean that she had a baby with Adam. So her having a child was a shock to me, obviously, and was a shock to Owen, but he's taking all of this in and stuff. And the kid's name is AJ. Apparently there's this whole dynamic with her not having full control of the situation, I think, because Lydia had the power to just not let AJ stay with Auburn because she saw Owen and didn't approve of Owen and whatnot, so she took AJ away. So there's something going on there. I'm not really sure what the dynamic is, why Lydia has control of the situation, because Auburn is his mom. So I'm sure we'll figure that out soon. There's kind of a lot going on right now. I don't really know what's going to happen. Hopefully, we're going to figure out soon what the whole connection is between Owen and Auburn, because he still is mentioning references to, like, he knew her from somewhere and he can't tell her where he knows her from and all this stuff. So I really want to know about that. Hope we get that soon. So I'm going to keep reading for today, and I will talk to you guys in a little bit after I've read some more. So it's a little bit later, and I just finished part 1 of the book. Whenever I'm reading, I always forget. If I see part 1, I always forget it, because then I get to part 2 and I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that this was split up this way. So part 1 is apparently finished. So essentially, in terms of Auburn's situation, she did get pregnant when she was 15 with Adam's baby, and her parents, I don't think, really wanted her to keep the baby. They wanted her to put it up for adoption, and she didn't want to do that. So the other solution was to allow Lydia to take full custody of AJ so that she would still get to help raise her baby. She just wouldn't get full custody. So that's what she decided to do. And she's basically been going along with that, but she really wants to have full custody of her son, and she's trying to spend more time with him, and she's willing to do whatever it takes, really, to get to be in her son's life more. We also have more information in terms of Trey, who I don't think I've talked about yet, because I honestly didn't think he would be that big of a character in this book, but he is essentially her brother-in-law, kind of, because he's Adam's brother, and he is still in the picture because of AJ and Auburn's relationship with Lydia. So he apparently is in love with her, and he wants to be with her, and he is trying to convince her to go out with him, and he's a cop. So he has all of these reasons why he thinks he's a good fit for Miss Auburn, who does not see him this way, and she thinks it's kind of messed up because he's Adam's brother, and she does not see him this way. She has no interest in him. Trey also does not like Owen because they have a bad history, and the chapter that I just finished talked a lot about what is actually going on with Owen. So Owen is not actually an addict. He was covering for his dad, who is still really messed up because of this accident that happened that killed his wife and his son, one of his sons, aka Owen's brother. So Owen's brother and mom are dead because of a car accident, I think. And Owen's dad turned to alcohol and pills, and he has been covering for his dad, who's been having these issues for a while. And the day that he got arrested for drug possession was actually because he went to help his dad, who was driving under the influence of alcohol and pills. And Trey ended up pulling them over. And Trey essentially told them that if Owen's dad is the one that takes responsibility for the pills, his career will be over because he works in law, and if he gets a criminal record, his job is basically done. Or Owen could essentially take blame, and then his father wouldn't have to deal with the repercussions of that. And he also indirectly warned Owen to stay away from Auburn. So Owen ends up taking the blame for the pills, and that's why he is getting arrested and all that stuff. Not because he's an addict. He doesn't have any reliance on drugs, apparently. So all that stuff was kind of like a little bit of a red herring, I think. I am pretty into the book. I'm enjoying it. But at the same time, I don't have that much left, and I feel like not that much has happened. So maybe there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff packed into this last bit. I'm not sure, but I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm missing time with the characters, maybe. They haven't spent that much time together yet, so I just don't really know how I feel about Confess as of right now. I'm definitely enjoying it, but I'm not sure if I love it. So time will tell. I'm going to put this down, and I'll come back to this in a couple days. So I will see you guys then. So it's a few days later, and I just finished chapter 19, so I am pretty much almost done. I have like a little bit left here, so I'm definitely going to finish this book today. So Auburn decided that she wanted to try to be with Trey, that way she can get closer to AJ, even though she knows that she doesn't want to be with him. She's hoping hopefully she can get there, or she can tolerate it, so that she can do what's best for her son. So Owen ends up getting released from prison and he goes to a store and happens to just run into Auburn and Trey. And then Trey gets super controlling and scares Auburn, which is not surprising, honestly, from what we've seen from him so far. It makes sense that he would be kind of pretty controlling. And she ends up being scared of him, even though she was starting to try to be hopeful about the fact that they were going to be together. Once this happened, she was like, yeah, okay, I'm not feeling this. I don't like this. Which, props to her. Good for you, girl. Get the heck out of the situation. Then Owen showed up at Auburn's hair salon. She cuts his hair, and then he ends up inviting her back to his place. They're hooking up, and he keeps telling her things like, tell me I deserve you, tell me I'm the only one who deserves you, and all this stuff, which honestly I thought was kind of weird. Like, I get why he might be saying stuff like that, but at the same time, it just came across weird to me, honestly. I don't know. It might just be a me thing. When I read that, it just rubbed me the wrong way, but yeah, that scene was kind of strange to me. And she ends up leaving the next morning before Owen wakes up, and she leaves him a note saying, I'm going to think about this for the rest of my life, even when I'm not supposed to, even though I know I'm not supposed to think about it, or something like that. So Owen ends up going to the bar that Harrison works at, and then by the time he comes home, his studio is completely trashed. There's paint everywhere, everything is a mess, and he runs to his room to see if the painting of Autumn is still there. And it's intact, but the confession that Auburn left is gone. Basically confessing to spending the night with him was gone, so he automatically is like, okay, yeah, it was Trey. Trey was in here. Trey destroyed my stuff, and now Trey knows that Auburn and I spent the night together. So after that, Trey ends up showing up at Auburn's place, and initially she's kind of thrown off. She doesn't really know what's going on, and then she hears from Owen. He texts her, I think, as a heads up, a warning that Trey broke in and that she should be on guard. And he ends up coming into her apartment. He's in her bedroom. He's really aggressive. He's basically assaulting her, and she's upset, obviously, because this man is assaulting her and why is he doing this. And then her roommate ends up kicking him out, and she's just super, like, messed up over the situation, as she should be. So obviously I'm not a big fan of Trey. I don't like him, and I don't want Auburn to have to be with him just for the sake of AJ. But at the same time, if I'm being honest, I also don't really love Owen for Auburn either. There's just, I don't know, it's not that he's a bad person, but just the things that he was saying about, like, tell me I deserve you, and also just, he also hasn't told her how he knows her, and there's just certain things that I'm not super loving his character for. And there is still time. I'm right at the end of the book, pretty much. There's like 40 or so pages left. So I think we're going to learn at the end how Owen knows her, but I don't know if that's going to be enough to make me love him as a character. So I still am enjoying the book. I just don't know if I'm loving it. I think I've said this before. It's not going to be one of my favorite Colleen Hoover books. I think it's still enjoyable and it's still keeping my interest, and I'm reading it quickly, just like I've read the other books. But yeah, that's kind of where I stand for now. So I will come chat with you guys after I've finished the book, and I will give you my final thoughts.
So after I last dropped off, Owen ends up showing up at Auburn's place, and he sees what Trey has done to her. She's upset, she's distraught, and he ends up taking her to a hotel to get her away from the apartment and to help calm her down, and to also make sure that he can keep her safe from Trey. And while they're there, he confesses what happened with his dad, with the pills, and that it's not actually him that was doing pills, but his dad. And he also fills her in on what was going on with Trey, how Trey knew about the situation and was trying to keep Auburn away from Owen. So Trey shows up pissed, and he basically tries to blackmail Auburn into leaving Owen, and he kind of baits Owen to get him to punch him. So Owen punches him, basically, they come to this altercation, and he calls the cops as backup because he's planning on getting Owen arrested for assault, I guess. And apparently he also stashed stuff around his house, so he would also be trying to get him in for assaulting a police officer plus drug possession, which was planted, so it wasn't actually like Owen had those, but that was Trey's plan. However, this plan does not end up working out, thankfully, because Auburn secretly recorded the conversation of Trey basically confessing to what he did. And then she meets up with Owen's dad, they discuss it, and then they end up meeting up with Trey and his mother, and she confronts him about the evidence that she has. So Lydia, aka Trey, and Adam's mom ends up agreeing to give Auburn custody of her son. That way she can protect Trey's career, so she ends up choosing her son over her grandson, essentially. And then that way Trey is leaving her alone, and she's free to be with Owen. Owen goes back to Auburn's place, and he sees the painting that we saw at the very beginning of the book, the first time, I think it was, that Owen went to Auburn's apartment. He saw the painting, and based off of what Auburn was saying, we knew that it was from Adam, and I think I had thought originally that Adam was also an artist and Adam had painted this, and maybe she has a type, and coincidentally both these boys that she's into are artists. So apparently that's not actually what ended up going on. So we get this flashback to whenever Adam was in the hospital and was still alive, and Owen was also in the hospital because his dad was in the hospital post car crash of his family dying, basically. So he would overhear Auburn visiting Adam and their conversations with each other, and he actually got into a little altercation with Trey because Trey was trying to separate them, I guess, and Owen was like, no, give them more time, let them have their moment, and basically stopped him from intervening. That way Auburn and Adam could have some more time together, which is nice. So I guess Adam technically was into art because he had art supplies and his mom was getting rid of it, and then Owen found those art supplies and did his first painting, and he made it for Adam. So he painted a painting, his first ever painting, and then he brings it to Adam to give to him as a gift. And this was the painting that was hanging on Auburn's wall in her apartment. So he tries to give the painting to Adam, and Adam asks Owen to send the painting to Auburn. And then because I think he signed the painting, Adam sees that Owen has the same middle name as Auburn, and he goes, oh, maybe it's fate that you guys are supposed to be together. And Owen was like, I think her fate is supposed to be with you. And then Adam says, well, hopefully she has more than one fate, which is basically kind of like giving him his blessing, I guess, for him to then be with Auburn. So this is the big secret, I guess, that he needed to confess to Auburn, that he knew who Adam was, and he kind of knew who Auburn was based off of this interaction. Now that I finished the book, honestly, I don't think it was bad. I did like Auburn and Owen together more at the beginning of the book, honestly, and now that I've read the ending, I kind of wish that this book was about Auburn and Adam. I feel like I would have liked it a bit more with their relationship. Even though we honestly don't know that much about Adam, I feel like I would have enjoyed it better. So I guess now the parts that kind of rubbed me the wrong way about him saying, tell me I'm the one who deserves you, or tell me I'm the only one who's good enough for you, or something. I don't remember what it was, but those parts kind of bothered me. And now that I've finished the book, I feel like this was in reference to him being the only one who technically got Adam's approval to be with her, and that's why he thinks like, I'm the one who deserves you, I'm the only one who deserves you, those kind of things. I'm not sure if that's actually what I'm supposed to believe, but at this point I'm hoping it is, because if it's not, then I go back to what I said about him being weird and possessive when he said those things. But even if that is what I'm supposed to believe, I still don't love them as a couple. I'm not like, oh my gosh, they're so good together, I'm so happy that the book went this way. Like, I don't feel super strongly about their relationship now that I finished the book. So unfortunately, I wouldn't say this is my favorite Colleen Hoover book ever by any means. I did really like the painting aspects of the book. Like, we got to see some pictures of the paintings, we got to learn about the confessions, and that was a really cool concept. I stand by that. I think that was really good. And I also went through this book really quickly, but I just feel like I'm missing something. Like, I'm not super invested in the story. I don't feel super strongly about it. I don't think I'm really gonna think about this book after tomorrow. So with all of that in mind, I'm gonna give this book a 3 out of 5 stars. It, like I said, is not my favorite. I don't think it was bad. I think it was decent. It was a good book for what it was. I read through it quickly. I just wanted more. So 3 out of 5, that's where I stand with this one. Please let me know down below if you guys have read Confess, if you stand by her being with Owen, or if you're like me and you also kind of wish she had this book with Adam. Let me know down below, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you guys agree with me, or if you have a completely different perspective, I would love to hear about it. So that is all I have for you guys today. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to, you can go ahead and leave a like, a comment, or subscribe if you want, and I will see you next time. Thanks, guys. Bye. God bless.